Mazzy here. This is one of those mixtape videos I do occasionally. So this is Vclt Mia R.I.P. Vinyl Finds, Vinyl Community Love Train, Missing in Action, rest in peace. Do the rest in peace first. Of course, you all know John Prine passed away yesterday. This is April 8th, 2020. John Prine. The coronavirus, he's been sick on and off the last few years. I saw him 3 times in the 70s. Never saw him after that, so I'm mostly, I think it's all at the boarding house in San Francisco. Used to have more of his albums, but this is what I have left. From back in the days, my John Prine Diamonds in the Rough. Used to have a lot of albums by him and Steve Goodman, artist out of Chicago. John Prine, self-titled Illegal Smile. You know, I'm not going to even get into these because those of you in the know him, and if you don't know him, you should just go listen to his music. Sweet Revenge, on Atlantic, 1973, and the last album he did, 2018, The Tree of Forgiveness. 2 CD Rhino Comp. A great overview if you're a CD person and you just want a good overview of his songs. This on 2 compact discs will suffice, and maybe you'll get into more him. Same day, ironically, Hal Wilner died. Wilner, W-I-L-L-N-E-R. Esoteric, avant-garde, modernist, New Yorker, producer, arranger. Those of you who remember a show called, I think it was called Sunday Night, hosted by David Sanborn out of New York, and it had an esoteric mix of musicians doing live performances, from punk to new wave to avant-garde. I got to know him because of the wonderful special comps he put together, where he produced artists doing various cover versions and highlighting composers and musicians. The first one I believe I got into was Lost in the Stars. I'm not quite sure in the order. These are from the late 80s. This is the music of Kurt Weill. Great. It's got Todd Rundgren and Gary Window. It's got Richard Butler with Ralph Schuckett. Richard Butler from the lead singer of Psychedelic Furs. Tom Waits, John Zorn, Van Dyke Parks, Charlie Hayden, Carla Bly and Phil Woods, Marianne Faithfull and Chris Spedding, Sting. These are just really interesting records, a bit on the jazzy side, very soundtracky. Soundtrack is probably not a word, but really wonderful series. They really are mood pieces, but with great put together productions. The other one around that time that I got into in '88, he put together, which is probably my favorite of all of them, is Stay Awake, and it's the songs of Walt Disney from the films. Various interpretations of music from vintage Disney films. Opens up with this great kind of mood piece, narrated by Ken Nordine, who I did a feature on. You know his voice from the Levi commercials of the 70s. He's done albums with David Grisman and Jerry Garcia, but his word jazz records are just amazing. But it also has Bonnie Raitt with Was Not Was, Buster Poindexter, Ringo Starr, Sun Ra and the orchestra, Sid Straw, Ema Sumac, James Taylor, Susanna Vega, Tom Waits, Sinead O'Connor, NRBQ, Harry Nielsen, Aaron Neville, Los Lobos, Garth Hudson, Bill Frisell, and Wayne Horowitz. Really, really good versions of a lot of the Disney songs that some of us grew up with from the classic cartoons, everything from Dumbo to Snow White. Great thing. What I'm playing in the background right now is this record, another of the New York avant-garde jazz with Bill Frisell, Carla Bley, Weird Nightmare, Meditations on Mingus. So the stuff is a little out there, adventurous, very much like Charlie Mingus's wilder stuff. But again, a good mood piece of music. There's a picture of Hal at this time in the 80s. And he also died of the coronavirus in his apartment, I believe in the Upper West Side of New York. And ironically, the last tweet he made the day before, a couple days before he died, was wishing good thoughts to John Prine, who was sick with the coronavirus. So, other records, the I'm Your Man tribute to Leonard Cohen, Thelonious Monk, The Way I Feel, again another overview collection with Was Not Was, Charlie Rouse, Steve Lacy, Donald Fagen from Steely Dan and Steve Kahn, Bruce Fowler, NRBQ, Randy Weston, Carla Bley, Steve Lacy and Elvin Jones. Again, a lot of stuff has, even the rock stuff has moody soundtrack and jazz influence, but a great producer. He put to, September Songs, more music of Kurt Weill. There was a live performance project he worked on and compiled and produced with Nick Cave, PJ Harvey, David Johansen, Elvis Costello, The Persuasions, Betty Carter, and more. These are really great collections on compact discs. He also compiled, these are my favorite, I've showcased these before, the music of Carl Stalling. Carl Stalling worked with Warner Brothers doing a lot of the cartoons, the Bugs Bunny cartoons, all the Warner Brothers things from the 40s and 50s. Some of the music that was taken from, I think I did a whole feature on, well, anyway, I did some work on it. He compiled these, but these are the original recordings from those cartoons, from the Walt Disney, not Walt Disney, excuse me, the Warner Brothers cartoons, What's Up Doc, Bugs Bunny. Really great set of music. Raymond Scott, that's what I was thinking of. Some of Raymond Scott's music is infused in those things. He also was a producer outright of artists that he used a lot on those albums. One of which is a beautiful sort of torch album from Marianne Faithfull, who MIA is, hopefully she'll get passes, but is sick with coronavirus right now as well. So we're wishing Marianne Faithfull good health. Strange Weather, produced by Hal Wilner. Again, a beautiful, beautiful torch-like song fest, really, really good. I'm a big Marianne Faithfull fan. He also produced Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson. He produced Ecstasy, this album by Lou Reed. This came out in the year 2000. This is a Record Store Day issue of it. And he produced the great Lucinda Williams, this album, West. So that's the R.I.P. MIA. And now, before I show you the new records, this is the VCLT I got. Jam on Vinyl. Mike, out of the blue, and this was a really interesting thing he sent me, and very touching and very, he pays attention. Hopefully we all pay attention, but every once in a while you hear, I talk about San Francisco a lot, and you've seen my videos. Some people think I talk about San Francisco way too much. But in 1967, there was a small radio station that was taken over called KMPX. And Tom Donahue was a disc jockey who worked at KYA, the big AM station, for several years. He had a fledgling record company, I think it was Autumn Records, because he produced and managed, or he worked with the Beau Brummels. That was the first few albums that were produced by Sly Stone. And he was a large man with a big personality and a great low baritone voice. And he basically, with KMPX, first he started doing the all-night show, or the 8 to midnight show. Then he took over the whole station in 1967, KMPX. And it's considered the first underground FM rock station, where they play entire album sides, the long cuts like the Doors albums, the long songs that AM radio weren't playing aside from Light My Fire, Sgt. Pepper that year, Surrealistic Pillow, the psychedelic scene, things that were happening in San Francisco, and the scene from New York. Basically all underground free-form music, virtually commercial free. But then they started getting local commercials from waterbed companies, jean stores, things that kind of reflected what the counterculture wanted. Well, there was a big strike. KMPX only lasted really in this form for about a year and a half. And then they went over and they moved to and started KSAN Radio, which was a Metro Media station. Anyway, I grew up with that radio station and Tom Donahue. And I haven't heard this yet, but he sent me, it's basically an air check tape. And I got to figure a way to transfer 3 3/4 IPS speed, 900 feet, 4-track, air check. And it's beautiful, artistic. Somebody did illustrations at the time from 1967. And what's great about it, it has inside the original letter that somebody sent somebody else. This is a tape of a San Francisco station, KMPX, which is a no bullshit music and sometimes revolutionary station. I've left commercial station freakouts, everything, to give you an idea of what the audio scene is going on here. Just heard that Jimi Hendrix died. I feel as though I lost a friend. I've included on track, a 4-track, a letter from Timothy Leary, who is now with the Weatherman. It's a newsreader from KSAN, a Metro Media station. Anyway, it goes on here. I'm talking about KMPX radio and the industry and the politics of the time slightly. This is right up my alley. This is perfect. And Jam, I'm just going to read a little bit. Jam on Vinyl reads, Sir Mazzy, I'm currently watching your latest video on the Grateful Dead. As usual, it's an in-depth, chock full of amazing analysts. Your wealth of knowledge has inspired all of us in the vinyl community. I love your collections of handbills you showed. I'm an avid collector of concert art and would love to venture into the abyss of handbills. So beside this typed letter, I included a reel-to-reel tape of a program on KMPX radio. I heard you mention the station, the video, thought you would enjoy having it in collection. I appreciate your roots of history in San Francisco. So he goes on from there, but Mike, thank you. This is an amazing, I want to see if I can transfer it. I used to have the ability, I'll figure it out. Because I used to listen to the station all the time in my bedroom as a young teenager on my FM, when I first got a little FM clock radio. So Mike, very thoughtful, thank you. This comes at a really great time, obviously for a lot of us. And lastly, I'm just going to show the vinyl finds, basically things I pre-ordered over the list. I'm going to go through them really fast. The new Morrissey album is fantastic. Shitty ass, rat ass cover, horrible cover. I think Morrissey is personally a wanker, but I love his music, and this is a fantastic record. The record is great. The artist is like that, but I hate the cover. I think I want to do my own cover art on this. Tone Poet. I had never heard this record in 1969. This reminds me, it's not like In a Silent Way by Miles Davis, but you see Herbie Hancock, like Miles, going for that transition period from the traditional stuff they were doing in the mid to late 60s, getting more and more adventurous, going into synthesizers and other things before 1970, like with Miles going to Bitches Brew. Amazing record, very medium feel to it. I mean medium in terms of the aural sound palettes in a way. It's not out there. There's not a lot of high pitch horns like trumpets on this, brass instruments. It's really kind of sound like the soundtracks of the time, in terms of African soundtracks, in terms of things like Shaft and that, but it's got a really organic, in a way, if that makes any sense, for R&B, jazz fusion, soulful fusion, soulful jazz. Love this. This came out of a surprise for me because I'd never heard it. I showcased on a couple of things Kokoro. They came back. This record is more upbeat, more disco, more produced, less of a freak flag record. I'm still digesting it. Really interesting. I think I prefer their wild antics and their crazy stuff. But this is more, in a way, danceable and upbeat. Might be good for the times where we need some upbeat music. Two sisters who were brought up with separate parents and re-met and moved to Paris and regrouped. But I think this is recorded on the East Coast, I believe, but really kind of a wild record. They do some really interesting things. The taller singer has a voice very operatic, and she studied opera, and the other singer is more of kind of this almost cartoony voice, but they do really interesting stuff. Not sold yet on this record totally, but looking forward to Put the Shine On by Kokoro. In the jazz realm, a couple of SRX records from Music Matters Jazz. One of probably the best Grant Green records, Idle Moments. Beautiful record. I knew this record. I had a cheaper version of it for years, which is adequate, but it's digital cut, and I had to go for this because this is probably the last time I'll be able to get something new digitally. And then one of the early great Maiden Voyage records by Herbie Hancock from 1965 with Ron Carter, Anthony Williams, George Coleman, and Freddie Hubbard. Again, these Music Matters, like the Tone Poets, have other photos inside. And I know I did, no, and lastly, I haven't listened to this yet, but I feel I need to support the local team. So the local record stores are doing drop-offs and mailings and stuff. So one of the record stores here locally is, in West Seattle, is, how come I just forgot the name? Anyway, Pearl Jam new record, Gigaton. I haven't listened to it yet. I've heard the cut that's more of a dance, kind of an upbeat cut, which is pretty cool. Easy Street Records, that's it. They're sort of the home team record store of Pearl Jam. Their live Records for Day record last year was live at, from the mid-2000s, recorded at Easy Street Records. Half, I think, or maybe more of the members of Pearl Jam live in West Seattle, so that's their local record store haunt, and they really support them. So I felt I needed to support again the home team. Haven't got into it. I only have I don't even have any of their major records on LP. I have them on 2 or 3 on CD. So I'm not a huge grunge fan. I hadn't been, but now's the time, I think, just to kind of yell it out. So Pearl Jam's new album, Gigaton, looking forward to just cranking this, because sometimes you need to crank shit, and you need to support the home team. This has a beautiful artistic book in it that's really kind of perfect for the moment. So anyway, this is a short video, one of my potpourris mixes. Mazzy loves you, and there's more coming over the next days and weeks. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks again, Mike. Thanks, Mike. Jam on Vinyl.